So today's webinar's topic is about honing your coaching skills to tune up on the new ICF Core Competencies, and we're doing it as a two-part series. So we're presenting the part 1 today, and we have the second part of the series on the 16th of December, same time. So we are really happy to present this as a two-part and a very interactive series, which will help us learn about the new updated ICF competencies from none other than the master mentor coach, Rossella Pin. Via discussions, experience sharing, insights, and observing a real-time coaching session. So we have lots in store for you today. That will help us understand these better and help us use them more effectively in our coaching practice going forward. So we've promised and we've asked Rossella, it's not going to be a one-way download session. It's going to be extremely interactive. So we want you to be completely engaged with us throughout the session. Now, for my absolute honor to present to you Rossella Pin. She's a master certified coach who coaches executives and leadership teams internationally. Positive and passionate about change, she's an expert in organizational development and project management with more than 20 years of experience in leading companies. She's also a founder of Mentor Lab, a startup company providing coaching and mentoring services to Fortune 500 companies, an international not-for-profit organization. She's a faculty trainer and a mentor coach for the International Coaching Academy, a global provider of ACTP and ACSTH programs. Rossella holds a Master's of Arts in International Relations and Diplomatic Studies. She's an avid reader and a passionate traveler who enjoys spending time with her husband and 2 children, driving expeditions across Europe. So now on that note, and we got a smile on Rossella's face. So let's begin by turning our attention to the lady of the moment. So over to you, Rossella.
Thank you so much, Anu, for this introduction. And yes, well, if you want to get lost in Venice, you're all invited. It's quite a pleasure to get lost anyway. So you're all invited once this COVID is over. So thank you so much for being here. And I must admit, I see 98 people attending, and I feel really humble and honored to be here. And I already chat with some in the audience because there are also people that I know. So thank you also for all those that I know that are to be here and for this great supporting team. I said I never had such a big supporting team for a conference. So thank you so much. So for me, it's really an honor to talk about this new set of competencies that just been introduced. And I say that because when I started training myself in coaching skills, definitely there were things that I thought that were a little bit missing. And in practicing coaching, I realized that there was so much needed to make any session so effective. So when these new competencies were finally published and released, I realized that I was not the only one. And now I'm happy to see all those new little words that count so much in coaching, integrating in the new set of competencies. So as Anu said, we have included in this webinar moments of interaction among ourselves, between you, me. So, but anyway, because we are quite many, if you feel the need of asking a question, we might not be able to answer to all of them during this session, but I invite you to write them in the chat, and either between today and the next session or during the next session, I will take care of answering to all of them. So please feel free to write down any question you have or comments in regards to what I'm presenting, and then we can interact eventually also between sessions. So now that we arrive at the number 20 participants, so let's celebrate. I can open now the presentation. Here you are. Okay, so I thank you, Priya, for the title, which really, really point the situation, because new competencies, well, I must say, they do not represent such a huge change. So feel comfortable. You don't have to change the way you coach, but they simply integrate everything that's been learned in the coaching industry in the past 25 years. And we know the words have changed, two different century. So definitely there have been a lot of things going on, and now finally we see them there. When we thought about this webinar, we thought that one session would have not been enough. So we have split the competencies into webinars. So in the first webinar, the one of today, we will cover the first 5 competencies. In the second one, next week, we will cover the remaining 3. So now competencies are 8 and not 11, which is a great relief for many. So less competencies to remember and to learn, but definitely you will see the changes. So before during this webinar, I wanted to get to know you in the sense of, how is the coaching industry in India? And this is the last report that ICF has released this month. And what I noticed, what quite a surprise, because I know so many coaches in India, that in Asia, you see only 9%, the coaches that are credentialed are only 9% of the entire ICF population. And we can see that in India anyway, you have the highest number of coaches in the entire Asia. And I can see also something that will demonstrate the quality of coaching in India is that the number of MCC coaches is so high, over the 4%. That is the average in the world, which also demonstrate that you have high, the coaches are in India are high qualified. So my curiosity now, is to know a little bit more who you are present in this session with me. And so there will be a set of 3 questions that will be proposed to you, and we'll give you an idea on how all the different eventually credentials are represented here in this session. So which are the credential that you are holding, and eventually if you don't hold the credential, it's okay. If you are mentor coaching also, which you will understand after what it means, but definitely for those of you who don't know who mentor coaching is definitely that a mentor coach observe a coach in during some recorded or live sessions to assess the level of credential of a coach. And the third question that I will ask is if you have already had the opportunity to read the new ICF competencies and the new PCC markers that just released. And for those of you who don't know PCC markers are the frame of reference for all those who are mentor coaching other coaches to know exactly the behaviors that are expected from coaches to demonstrate their competencies and their level of awareness about the different competencies. So here I just wrote a quote from my supervisor, because something that has emerged also in the latest years is that there is so much need also for us coaches to keep on working on ourselves. So having a coach, having a mentor coach, having a supervisor is really essential. And this is what my supervisor says. And one of the most rewarding aspects of coaching is that we always have the opportunity to grow and to become more skillful. So this webinar is really an opportunity for all of us, myself too, to learn, because when we share something, definitely is the best opportunity we have to learn about what we share at a different level. So I will leave to my supporting team here to share the polls and also the results. So definitely we can see
Sure.
what is going on here. Thank you, Nimish.
Great, thank you. Please stand by as I launch the poll for the first question. Which ICF credentials are you currently holding? Here goes the poll. Hopefully you're seeing it on your screen. We have 103 participants right now, so we'll wait for all of them to finish the voting.
Sure.
We'll wait for another 10 seconds. Please allow another 5 to 7 seconds because we are seeing 91 of them have already voted, 9 more to go. All right. I'm going to shortly end the poll and then display the result. Okay, the poll ends now. And here is the result.
Anu, would you like to share the results?
Yeah, so it says 15% none. ACC, we have 37%. PCC is 31%. MCCs are 2%. And doing coach training is another 15%.
Thank you. Great. So for all those of you who are still doing coach training, please write in the chat if there is anything not clear to you, because definitely you are in the process of learning. So there might be things that I assume as known from the majority, but this might not be the case as always when we are always so involved in something that we know. So and for all of you who don't have an ICF credentials, if you have done a coach training that was accredited by ICF, you might know some of the old competencies. Eventually, again, to you too. If you have any questions, please use the chat so that I can address all your needs. And great to see then that we have quite the same level of ACC and PCC, which again is something unusual. No, in not many countries we have more ACC than PCC. So again, this means that in the audience we have highly experienced coaches. So good, a bit of a challenge for me then. So thank you so much for that. Let's look at the second one. So how many of you are also mentor coaching? So
right.
Observing other coaches
Here
coaching.
goes the second poll. Are you
Yes.
a mentor coach? Please go ahead and vote. Okay, now people have warmed up to the voting element. So we're having a quick vote across. 85% have already voted. We'll wait for another 10 seconds because 92% have already voted.
Great. So you could share the results, Nilesh.
All right, I'm going to end the poll. And here comes the result.
Wow. So it says 14% yes, they are mentor coaches, 84% no, and 2% say don't even understand what that means.
So definitely that's something that I discovered talking with Anu, and I was assuming that there were many more mentor coaches, and instead this is not the case. So I will take some time to explain to you what is mentor coaching, and in the demo that we will see, I will use some of the mentor coaching skills. So it will be an opportunity for you to also discover what it is, and eventually, who knows, become passionate about it, and get some training and become mentor coaches. Especially for those of you who are has a lot of expertise now in coaching, and for those of you who don't know what that means, definitely, it is. I will explain a little bit later when we come to the before starting the demo. So hold on for a second, and then you will discover what this means. Okay, so let's go with the number 3.
Sure. There you go. Kindly go ahead and vote for the next poll. Have you read the new ICF Core Competency Model and PCC markers?
And feel free to say no if it's no. We're not a school, so there won't be evaluations there.
All right, we'll wait for another 5 more seconds before closing the poll. Thank you. And here is the result.
So yeah, it reads 42% have yes, read the ICF core competencies and the PCC markers. 27% said no, and 31% are somewhere in the middle. They said somewhat read it.
Mm-hmm.
So I read it, not really read it, not sure.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving me the possibility to know a little bit more who you are. And obviously, my ideal setting is in small groups when I can get to know you in details, but this won't be possible today. So at least I have a few indications. So for all of you, I just type in the chat the address of the page of the ICF, where you can find the old competencies, the new competencies, and then also a link to the PCC marker. So this for you, because obviously we won't have the time to read it closely, but we will go through them and see what are the bigger changes. You might see that really it will resonate probably with what you are already doing, which is can be quite a relief for all of you also who are thinking about getting a credential in the next year or moving to a different level of credentials. So don't worry. And first of all the new competencies will come into force next year, but it will take some months before they are integrated in the coach knowledge assessment. That is the exam that you need to pass for the ICF credentials. So let's go now to the rest of the presentation. So now get ready to dive into the competencies. And we start with the first one, the foundation. And when the process of reviewing competencies started, there was a lot of thoughts about how could this be done. Definitely the people, the founders who created the initial version of the ICF competencies, there were a small group of people. Legends say they were just in 6. And so really the mother and fathers of coaching. And they decided, well, to sit down and say, what is coaching, and what makes an effective coach. And they based the ICF competencies on their experience and best practices. And I must admit, they lasted for 25 years, so it means they got it right. And this was confirmed by a survey that some of you may have done in, well, I think 2 years ago, if I remember well, where ICF asked to everybody to answer to some questions. And the idea was to identify which of the competencies were still up to date, that resonate with the majority of people, and which instead were up to date and then needed to be reformulated and changed. Well, here you see number one, and it was confirmed that the priority and for all coaches was the ethical presence. So ethics, especially in coaching, it's so important. And I say that especially because now that coaching is and professional coaching is starting being popular in some countries where coaching did not exist before. Uh, the fact of having professional coaches with a strong ethics is essential for the reputation of all of us in the industry. And I can share that because when I started, when I came back from living abroad, where coaching was there, I was worked for many years in Luxembourg, and then I came back to Italy, my home country. And when I started saying, oh, and I was doing coaching, people were saying, oh, what's that? You know, those motivators and things like that. So I discovered that actually the perception of coaching was not really corresponded to what I perceive as coaching and was I lived as an experience. In my countries, for example, we had to work a lot to build a reputation around coaching and coaching which is an ethical coaching. So this has been confirmed. And so you see here now, competence number one, reaffirm the importance of demonstrating ethical presence, which means applying coaching ethics and standards of coaching. And here you see something new that has been introduced in the new set of competencies, which is they define what do we mean by ethics, and it's personal integrity and honesty. And also the fact of understanding client's identity, environment, and experience. What does it mean? That obviously now that we coach more and more, thanks to technology, people living in other countries, there are things that for us may seem so obvious, but then we realize that they might be perceived unethical to others. So the idea is obviously these competencies are they summarize what can be applied at the global level, but then in each relationship, depending on the countries and the laws and the really the client's identity and context they are living in, we need to adapt our approach and be very sensitive to what is happening. So they decided to stretch on that, and especially based on all the complaints that we're receiving from, and especially the ethical committee received so many complaints about, not being honest, not being, not respectful of country standards and laws. So they added something about that. The same goes with the language. And I must say, I'm not a native English speaker. So, it might be tough sometimes. I need to really check my language. And so the idea of being respectful to clients. Also, when I train many even English native speakers, I noticed that sometimes slangs is included, which create a sort of disalignment with the client. So being respectful of the client language also and the client's language, it means also that if the client use a term which might not be the best term, we use it because that's his language, that's his word, and we don't correct the client. And these are simple things most of the time that we need to do simply when we coach clients. But then obviously it's not just the client. And here you see the other big change, sponsor and relevant stakeholders. So before 25 years ago, coaching was mainly considered as one-to-one coaching. But now in recent years, we see how group coaching and team coaching are becoming more and more popular. And this is due probably to a sort of democratizations of coaching that is offered to more and more people. And the way to offer it to more and more people, and also to people who cannot really afford the standard fees, is to do group coaching. And then in companies, they also realize that in investing on individual people, and then maybe those people leave the company, the return on investment is limited. Why instead, if they invest on team coaching, then the team is enabled to coach themselves. And so even if some members leave the team and new come in, there is there are people in the team that can introduce that culture of coaching and maintain that culture despite all the changes. And as we know now that things are so changing in the world, well, this is so much needed. So team coaching is definitely something that has been introduced. And as we have team coaching and group coaching, we might have to deal with sponsors, but not only with sponsors, with relevant stakeholders, which so many times we need to deal also, for example, the boss of the leader of the team and many other people who have an interest. Now I have a team coaching started, leadership team coaching started. And for the triangle meeting, well, it will be an octagon meeting because there are so many people involved in these assignments and they have an interest on that. So it will be quite a bit of a challenge we will be in two coaches, obviously, but it will be quite a bit of a challenge to deal with all those different stakeholders. But this is something new we are experiencing now as coaches. So what else you see here as something changing is that we need to also respect confidentiality in regards to everything that has been agreed also with stakeholders, but also with pertinent laws. And obviously, we know that ICF is headquarters in the United States, and there are rules. But I have the experience in Europe. We have much more stricter rules. So if an agreement, a coaching agreement with a client, the standard one of ICF is 3 pages. Well, I must say in most of the countries in Europe is about 10 pages. I'm curious to know what it is in India, but we have so many regulations and stricter rules that we need to abide to. So when we start coaching people in other countries, we might need to think about, how can I be compliant to all the laws that are anyway involved in our relationships. So there is not much changes in all the others. So for those of you who are seeing the competencies for the first time, when we talk about ethical presence, definitely here we see all mainly the established what coaching is different compared also to other different type of intervention. And here also we have seen a change. Before it was more coaching is not. Now we can say coaching is, which is a big change, in the approach and awareness of what coaching is now. So when we look at competency number 2, here we see the big change. The new introduction is having a coaching mindset. And what we mean by having a coaching mindset is that it's not just doing coaching that matters. What makes a coaching session very effective is how the coach is in the session. So for all of you who have been coaching, you know how much this is relevant. And it's not just about the doing techniques and tools, it's about the being. And the big change here also in the way competencies are phrased is that they focus on the being. And having a coaching mindset, what does it mean? It means being open, curious, flexible, and client-centered, not only in the session, but also between sessions. And again, this has been a big change. Before, everything looks like, was ending with the starting and ending with a session. Now it is so relevant to see what happens between sessions too. And we know the client keep on working, and many things that didn't really didn't appear in the session now happens between sessions, because the client is now integrating what they learned. They are reflecting on what they learned during the session. So being present for the client, very open to their needs and flexible to really meet their needs that can be different for each client, it's so relevant. And now also acknowledge and recognize. So what do we need to have that coaching mindset? Definitely being open ourselves to learning and development. And now, so that's why there is a lot of attention on mentor coaching that is requested, not only to become a coach, but also to renew your credentials. So being mentor on competencies is something now that is considered as a must for all coaches that are willing to go towards mastery. And you learn so much. My experience is, as an internal coach, is that I was coaching but never mentor. And so I had nobody telling me what I was doing right or wrong, but especially which were the missed opportunity that I couldn't see in each session. So when I started being mentor, I realized, well, first of all, I could acknowledge myself for things that were really working well, and I learned how to observe myself during the session. And then I realized also how much valuable was to having someone letting me notice any missed opportunity. And behind any missed opportunity, there is something we need to deal with ourselves. And probably something that we are worried about addressing, or something we see our attention is concentrated on something, or maybe even we are thinking, oh, what should I do here? So noticing missed opportunities help us to grow. Something that was already included in the other big association of coaching, which I'm part of, European Mentoring Coaching Council, is the reflective practice as well. Reflective practice is something else that's been now added also to ICF competencies. So it means that after each session, I observe, review my session, and notice what happened, what has triggered me, what could I've done differently, I'm realizing about myself. So most of the cases, and especially in the past, there was a big attention on the client and what the client was doing, what the client was not doing. Now the relationship is equal. So the client will do their own reflective practice. We will do our own reflective practice after the session. And doing that, the relationship becomes stronger. And definitely each client is an opportunity to grow. Something that emerges always during the reflective practice that can be also guided with some questions that you ask yourself. And if you're curious, I might share some. It is to, be mindful of, the things that stop me from, for example, sharing my intuition or sharing an observation or giving a feedback or simply addressing something that the client is a pattern, for example, that I noticed from the client. Sometimes is influenced also from my culture and context, the context I am in. And for those who are working also for corporates, you know how much the corporate context might have an impact. I'm doing a lot of mentor coaching to internal coaches, and there is a lot that they need to address, obviously, because it is a really delicate role. definitely Robin is saying, and I see here, which is a method. Most of the time, you use questions that normally mentor coaches ask, like, is there, what is the question that you're still holding and you didn't dare to ask? This is one of the, and what in reviewing this session, is there a moment where you were managing something internally and these distracted your presence? So these are all type of questions that uh, a mentor normally ask, and then you can ask yourself in a way to mentor coach yourself for the session. Sometimes it's very useful also to record some sessions, especially with some clients with their permission, and just simply re-listen to them and observe. Simply by observing yourself from the external, you might notice plenty of things. And then here you see the other big change is that we need to mentally and emotionally prepare for session, which doesn't mean just doing meditation. It's not enough. There's much more that we need to do and to address to prepare for sessions. And we might also help the client to prepare mentally and emotionally for the session. So now more and more, giving to clients pre-session questionnaire, what they have the opportunity to prepare themselves and come to the session ready, focus, and present is essential. And it can change completely how the session goes. Pre-session question can be questions like, simply a review of the week, even addressing how is your energy level, what did work, what didn't work in the previous in the week, and what would you like to address in the session with your coach? What are your expectations from your coach? So reviewing expectation before allows also to keep the session shorter. And now in companies more and more, there is a request of shorter session, like laser session, 30-minute session. So you know that to be able to run a session in 30 minutes, you might need to prepare the client before. So they need to do some work before and after the session. So in the other competency 3, 4, and 5, linked to co-creating the relationship, there are no big changes. So for number 3, definitely the bigger change is that it's not enough to establish the agreement, but the agreement, which is plural, but also to maintain them, which means that whenever something has been agreed for the overall relationship needs to be maintained. And it means that double checking all the time with relevant stakeholders and the client how you are progressing, if there is any change. Then something that has been finally addressed, and this is good for all of us who are working with corporates. It is true, we always say in coaching, whatever the client decides to focus on in a session, that's the rule, we follow that. But we know that when we work in a corporate environment, there are some overall goals. There are some expectations. So finally now, you see, it is clearly stated that we need to partner with client and relevant stakeholders to establish an overall coaching plan and goals. Then obviously, each client can decide what needs to happen in the session in order to move forward towards that overall goal. But this is something that stays there. And also that we need to determine client-coach compatibility. And if in one-to-one relationship, unless there is a financial interest in any way, keep on working with a client, even if we understand that we can't really work well with that client. And in companies, this is harder, especially because they might there are obviously bigger amounts of money and also they might ask you to be the only coach to serve so many people and people that you need to serve. So clients might not be the ones who have chosen to be coached, And so definitely determining client's coach compatibility is now something that we need to address personally. It's our own responsibility. And therefore, it is requested from us to address any issue in regards to that with relevance with the client, but also with stakeholders. As you can see here, it is giving a lot more ownership to the coach and putting the relationship on an equal level. There are needs of the client, but there are also needs of the coach, and they are both relevant. Number four, so number three, just one thing that I already mentioned in the last part is that you help the client, really partner the client to manage time and focus of the session, which means that if the client again is not focused, we must address that directly. It's not enough to simply stay there and see the client rambling. So what is requested from the new competencies is also to have a bigger impact on making the process work, which means also addressing anything that can in a way sabotage the effectiveness of the session, because simply the client is not managing time and the client is not able to focus and be fully present. And this is so relevant when you do group coaching and team coaching, because even though what the client is, the behavior of the client, you might address that and eventually do something about it by staying a little bit longer in the session with the client. But when you are dealing with group and teams, that might be you have the best intention, but maybe other team members are really sabotaging the session with their behaviors. So in that case, obviously, we need to address that directly. And the new ICF Competency on Team Coaching clearly say that the approach of a coach in team coaching needs to be more directive to address behaviors that are not serving the coaching relationship directly in the session. And the same goes with ending coaching relationship, because one of the essence of coaching is that they can't last forever and shouldn't create dependency. So we need to keep that in mind, but we need also to support the clients to end the coaching relationship. And I had a case the other day with a client telling me, well, I don't know what is happening, but my client, I am arrived at the, with all my clients already at the 40 or 50 sessions. And I guess I'm start wondering if there is something I'm not doing. So definitely here, partnering with the client to see an end to the coaching relationship and be willing to end it from our side, getting prepared to end it as we have agreed at the beginning is now requested very openly, because most of the complaints are due also to that. And from the ethical committee, they realize that either because the contract doesn't clearly state how much the coaching relationship will last, and then eventually, the coach keep on doing session endlessly, and we know how much risky is that with a client. Maybe it can be transformed into something else, but coaching definitely has a beginning and an end in a period which should be no more than 1 year. So going for 4 and 5, here we will look at these two more when we go in the PCC markers. But definitely what is here is, again, an attention to talents and insights of the client. So respecting also who is the client as a whole. Before, we have noticed now from the coach, it is expected to also look at the systems now the clients belong to. So all the stakeholders, the context they are living in and working in. Now it is requested from us also to look at the client as a whole and appreciate and acknowledge the identity, and also creating that support, really not anymore intimacy as it used to be before, but especially to create a psychological safe space for our client, and where the client is free to open up, address feeling, perception, concern, beliefs, and suggestion. And by doing so, we also we allow our client to fully and really express themselves. And this might sound quite normal to many of you, but I can tell you that in many countries, and feelings are not addressed in coaching, because there is a misperception that addressing feelings is going into another type of intervention like psychotherapy. Instead, here, addressing feelings means, knowing that we are also, we are not just thoughts and words. We are also feelings, heart, values, fears. Clients have intuition, and we have them too as coaches. So now we can be open and transparent also with our clients, and in a way make ourselves vulnerable to allow our clients to be also vulnerable. Number 5, it allows us to, there is this new word there, which is being grounded. And being grounded, if I take the definition, is being sensible and responsible. And especially, it is stated, it is understanding the importance also of ordinary things. Many times when I mentor coaches, I see how they are waiting for big topic, big things happening, and they underestimate the importance of small ordinary things that the client is bringing. Slightly changes in their emotions and energy that obviously are clear indication there's something bigger is there, but they might not be ready to address them. So the idea is being so focused and observant in order to notice all those little things and give value to those things, knowing that if the client is bringing them into the session, it means that they matter. And we just need to allow space, silence, even a space for reflection, and even invite the client to reflect on what we're noticing in order for the client to know and understand what is the importance behind that little things that they are bringing to us, that ordinary things they're bringing to us. So I know this was quick, but we will now go into, we will now wanted to leave you space for you to discuss. And especially in this exercise, will be done in breakout rooms, is to choose one of the new things, the one probably that you are still retaining, that you were, surprised by it, or something that say, oh, finally, I see ICF recognizing that theme. So think about that. You will be in small groups, identify what changes for the coach, and what changes also for your clients. And you will have 10 minutes for that. And then we will resume, and I will ask you some feedback. And if you can write them in the chat, then we will be able to recall which is the main thing, especially, that has really attract your attention. So let's see if you can start writing. Oh, I see Shripad. Ciao. Okay, so if you want to write in the chat the theme you will have focus on in your group, and let's see which is the preferred one. In briefly, yeah, just one sentence, yeah. And thank you, Sushima. So I already see something there about, the continuous learning, and definitely this is something that it is now a must for all coaches. So and the beauty of this profession being forced to be continue to learn. Okay, so coaching mindset seems to be coaching mindset, the ecosystem and stakeholders, feelings and emotions finally. So definitely the fact that during these years, this is a big difference compared to 25 years ago, we have discovered that we are also emotionally intelligent, isn't it? And we have all set of emotionally intelligent competencies that we can develop. That's the beauty of it. We can develop them. So now finally, this has been integrated. And also, all the fact about creating a psychological safety space. I see here from Aparna saying the explicit statement on safety. So it's different from intimacy, isn't it? So safety, it's something that you feel, and it's due to several things. And when you do coaching also in teams, psychological safety needs to be there. And I love always my mentor, Professor Plattebo. He always say as a joke, but he said, what was your worst mistake that you did, But even just open up and say, yes, that's what I did. Create a space where everybody can share and feel free to share. So the same can be for the coach. So sometimes, coaches say, oh, yeah, I felt that I didn't address that and I didn't know what to do with it. And I always ask, how, if you can let go that thought or feeling, okay, let it go. But if you keep on holding it until the end of the session, then it's better to share it. Be vulnerable and share it with your client. Something said, really, I sense that. So share it, because otherwise it will anyway impact your session. So I see again, feeling safety being, coaching mindset, emotional wellness of the coach. So this means also that we need to work on our emotional mind wellness. Love that. Stakeholders, we are not alone in this coaching. The reflecting part, so reflection, ongoing reflective practice. This is probably one of the most empowering moments when you really take the ownership of what has happened, and you can observing ourselves can be so enlightening. So let's see. Focus on education corporate and changes their role in making coaching effective. Okay, so Deepak, that's okay. You simply diverged to something. It means there was a good connection between you and the others. Okay, new competencies are more humane and inclusive. Yes, Daya, inclusivity definitely is something. So before, there was an acknowledgement of diversity. But, we always say diversity is a fact. Inclusion is an act. So to be inclusive, we must do something. And new competencies in that sense, they are really inclusive and human, because we are human beings. We're not robots. That's why artificial intelligence will not be able to replace us coaches, especially with these competencies. Now, it's much more challenging for robots to replace us, because we look at emotions too. And what else here? Manage time and focus. That's definitely, Vicky, frankly, intimacy was intimidating term. And they realized that when people were really saying, how can I translate in my own language that word intimacy? I can't do that. So definitely it was really intimidating. And vulnerability, I see here, and safety. So coaching mindset, I see reflective practice, safety. You really address the main one, so the big changes. So thank you, everybody. So now let's go to something that I mentioned about being able to observe ourselves. So the PCC markers are used by mentor coaching among the coaches and assessor, to as a framework to see which are the behavior that the coach is expressing in the session, and and then can help us to see the level of competency. So the using the PCC markers in your reflective practice, as some of you mentioned, can help you in understanding also what you did well, what you could, you think you could have done better, and especially, as I mentioned, the missed opportunity, and what has influenced that, the fact that you either redirect your focus, either your presence was not there. So one of the things that changed compared to the previous PCC markers, and I will invite you to work on it here, you will receive all those slides, so you will have the time to look at each of them in details. It is that is, here is what is important is that we talk about partnership more and more. Before, there was still this concept of helping the client, and that word of helping them also to understand what they need to resolve, which in many cases will bring in coaches to address the past. And we know that when we address the past, most of the time clients tends to get into the story, and especially for someone starting in the coaching practice, it's so easy to get into the story. So here, something interesting is that it is okay if the client shares something about their story, but we need to look at the narrative. How is the client living the story, and address those things that are emerging, like emotions, what the client felt. So how did you feel when this happened to you? And not only what were you thinking, but what was, when this happened, what was your intuition telling you, and what you did not. So we inquire and explore what the client, really experienced in that story. So we'll look at the narrative of the client, which help us to focus on the who instead of the story and all little details. The other thing important here is definitely that we need to maintain. So more and more, so many times when I mentor coaches, I see them establish a strong and robust agreement at the beginning, but they simply forget about it. And here there was a question: what can I do when the clients start rambling? Well, there is a difference between rambling and venting, isn't it? So if the client is rambling, losing the focus, and we can see that from their energy and emotions, then we need to address it immediately. If instead we notice that the client is venting, so they express that to empty themselves, and we notice that the energy is increased and the emotions is changing, then we see the need for doing it, and it means that it's okay, the client is moving forward, and we can simply acknowledge the change that is happening in the session. So when it's rambling, we stop the client, especially identifying what is happening, and nothing changed. They've been talking for 5 minutes, but nothing really changed in their emotional state and energy, and we address it. And yes, Adir, partnering is definitely beyond helping. So thank you so much. It's an alliance. There is an agreement that is strong and is always reviewed. Then we go into the number 4, and here we see what has changed is that we also look at, before it was just coach express support, now shows support. And definitely this was something that really a nightmare for many coaches. How can I express my support? Sometimes you express it with your non-verbal communication, which means you show that you care about the person, but also, you might have, also you might show your empathy and concern. You don't need to say anything. It's the way you are in the session that really shows to the client what is happening. looking at talents inside, definitely it is also a way of noticing when the client is having an inside, and acknowledge that, leave space to that, and also addressing talent. When the client, many time coaches ask me, yeah, but what should I observe? Well, notice when the client is doing something different, even from a session to another one, and acknowledge that and inquire what is behind, and especially adapt to what the client is bringing as something new in the session. Yeah, and I see, wow, that's good. That's good what is going on in the chat. So thank you so much, Punit. Definitely the equal partnership. Good. Then what else is here as a change? Here you see finally, not just before was encourages and allow, now encourage and support clients' expression of feelings, perception, concern, belief, or suggestion. Before it was simply fully expressed, too generic. So now it is clearly stated what is requested from the coach to allow not only simply the client to express, which many times was confused because I let the client talk and I'm supporting the client. No, it's not enough. It is really allowing the client, creating that safe place for the client to be free also to express at a deeper level, but also spread their worry. Coach is not just, wow, positive things. It's also about concerns and worries. And here it is, what are the big changes? So if you're wondering, which are the behaviors that can tell us that a coach has a coaching mindset, is definitely number 1, for number 3, and for number 4. So the fact of being open and flexible by accepting what the client brings to us and any response to what we are offering to them. So then here in maintaining the presence, what has changed is that there's been a split and much more attention on the whole person, the who, and the what. And you will see that appearing again in the creation of awareness, which is another competence that we will see next time, competence number 7. Here you see the fact of being grounded. So coach demonstrate curiosity to learn more about the client. Simply adding about the client means a lot, because here we understand that it's not details that we are really focusing on. We focus on the client, on the narrative, as I was mentioning, how the client lives, what they are telling us and sharing to us. And here another change in number 5.5 is the coach allows for silence, pause, reflection. So not just for silence and let the client finish talking, we were saying, the coach is quiet and gives client time to think. So many times there were clients talking for 20 minutes in a session of 30. This is not what is expecting from a coach. And so understanding really, as I was mentioning before, when it's the time to draw, and one is when instead the client is really needing silence, pause, or reflection, and inviting the client to do that. Because in that moment, there is a moment of uncomfort. They really grow. They understand something more about themselves. So here are the PCC market, and these are the ones that are used by mentor coaching to observe. So in the coaching session that we are going to do now, and I will need one coach to do the coaching session and one client as volunteers. Next time will be me coaching and you will be observing me, because you so I will have that privilege of being observed by so many of you. In this case, I will observe, and you may notice whenever the coach is showing some of the behaviors we have seen. And especially we will focus on the new themes. So safety, mindfulness, a coaching mindset, and also the ability to stay present and focused. So the idea is not to run an entire session, definitely, but simply to start it, as you know, we have focused on the first competencies. So here I've just written the, what happens in mentor coaching is exactly what has been now integrated in a new competency. So an equal partnership where also the mentor is free to share taking risk, what they observed, the listening at all levels. So I invite you to listen at all levels, notice the emotions, and eventually write in the chat whenever you notice something. And then allow for difference in style culture. We look at competence, not the way the coach is coaching, because we respect each own individual style. And me, I'm an Italian, I use hands and everything. That's my style, energetic and everything. That's my style. But why, others might have a different one. And then how you see how create safe and trusting space was already there for mental coaching as a core competencies. So I leave you now, Anu, take the lead, because you have.
So yes, so coaches, now's the time. So I need two people to volunteer, one as a coach and one as a coachee, as Rosella just mentioned. So raise your hand. This is a learning session. This is a safe space, and all of us here are here to learn and observe, and so no judgments here. So please, one of you. Oh, I have Ajit who's raised his hand. And Ajit, would you like to unmute yourself, or would you want to be the coach?
I would like to be the coachee.
Okay, all right. Who wants to be the coach? Shripad, oh, I see Johnny saying a thumbs up. Uh, would you want to be the coach? Unmute yourself. Yes, he's
Yes,
given a thumbs
yes,
up.
I
Excellent.
want to give.
Okay, go for it. So I think just to set the stage, so we have
I
20 minutes.
I'm
Um,
stopped from starting my video.
yes, you can start your video, and
Okay.
I could pin both your I think all of us can go off video, then automatically I'll put on the gallery view so both of you will be visible. So Ajit is your coach, and uh, so we have about 20 minutes.
No, Ajit is the coachee.
Yeah,
Anu,
sorry,
Ajit,
yes.
I am the coachee.
Ajit is the client, and Johnny is the coach. Go for it.
And I invite all the mentor coaches that are here eventually to support them. And you can write in the chat something that you notice. And for all the others, just simply enjoy the session and focus on one of the one themes and see what is emerging. We can't focus on everything, especially at the beginning. Just
Rosella,
focus on one thing.
Rosella, allow me to share my screen, and both the speakers will be visible to everyone.
Okay. Can we start, Ajit?
Yes, we can start.
Yeah.
Um, what's on the screen now?
Sorry, Nimish, are you doing something?
I'm trying to bring both the speakers on the screen. Give me a moment, please. All right. We are not getting it, so go ahead and
I
please.
think the gallery view would do that.
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
what I've done is I've hidden all those who are not on the camera, so I just see Anuradha and Ajit on my screen.
Okay, so
Okay.
Right. So thank you, Ajit, for this opportunity to have a conversation with you. And thank you for your permission for this conversation being recorded. I'm seeing that it's being recorded, and I thank you for your permission for the same, which is
Okay.
for our learning purposes. And for this conversation, what would you like to think about, Ajit, today?
Okay. I'm going to talk about an issue. Probably it may not be unique to me,
Mhm.
especially coaches in India. as a coach, we have a dilemma, right? Many of us have expressed this in so many forums, right? Choosing coaching as a profession here in India in these circumstances is not a standalone, it's not viable as a standalone option,
Okay.
right? So most coaches, if I look around me, are doing something other than just coaching, right?
Mm.
In this case, how do we resolve a couple of questions? Number one is my eagerness to get a client
Mm-hmm.
might push down the value of coaching. And
Okay.
I see a lot of people lowering their fees, so to say, or even the way in which people market their coaching services
Mm.
might be seen as a compromise on a lot of things that are dear to us,
Okay.
right? So I would like you to help me out on clarifying my thinking personally
Mm.
as to what extent can I can go to market my services
Okay. Right.
as a coach.
Right. And I'm thank you for sharing that. And I heard you wanting to be clarified
Right.
in the end of this. And what specifically would you want to be clarified by the end of this conversation?
The dilemma of coaching as a business as it requires to be done in our country
Mm-hmm.
and the dignity of coaching as a profession. How do I balance this?
Okay. And so you're looking for a balance within the dilemma.
Yeah, so what to choose and how do we strike a balance? Because if I am to be in the profession of coaching,
Mm.
I don't want to compromise either.
Mm. Okay.
And that is the whole crux
Right.
of the problem.
Right.
I mean, a lot of coaches will vouch for me that this is a dilemma that we face. Either you get a client or you lose the client. Many times, I mean, there's a struggle.
Okay.
So where is the line to be drawn?
Right.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Ajit, I heard at least twice you mentioning that not just me, but a lot of coaches in our country are going through this. Uh, what would Ajit want in clarifying this dilemma today?
Give me a moment to think on that. I would like to be clear about my options to continue to be a coach
Mm-hmm.
and yet to survive as a businessman.
Okay. And
Am I making myself clear?
yeah, I heard you, and you want to get to that level. And when you get there by the end of this conversation, Ajit, what will that give you?
Honestly, I don't know what will give me. I can tell you what I would like to have from there.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to have from the end of this a clear, doable, delineating these are the things I will do and these are the things I will not do.
Okay.
Number
Okay.
two, the extent to which I can depend on coaching as a revenue stream.
Okay.
I mean, I'm being very open about this, right?
Right.
These are the two things.
Okay. And what will tell you, Ajit, that you've gotten these two things by the end of this conversation?
These questions should cease to be questions,
Okay.
should not take up my thinking time.
Right. And when you're thinking something right now?
Yeah, I'm thinking of probably whether I'm framing these things right.
Mm-hmm. And what's appearing for you right now as you're thinking?
I think I've made it fairly clear when I say this question should not remain questions.
Okay.
There's a definite endpoint for this. Number two, when I say that it should not take up my thinking point or it should not take up my thinking time,
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be something conclusive.
Okay. Right. And who is this Ajit who is looking for conclusions?
The coach, the person that is a coach.
Okay. And why would it be important for you, Ajit, today?
To decide to what extent coaching should get my time.
Okay.
To decide how viable will coaching be. To decide how viable will coaching be.
Okay. If I have your permission, Ajit, I'm hearing two things. How much time to decide the time, how much of your time, and
So I'm just
you
putting
need to
this
get
off.
that.
Yeah.
And also the viability.
Yes. True.
And if you were to choose between these two, what would you choose right now to take things forward?
Can I hear that again, please?
You spoke about how much time you need to be spending in coaching and
Yeah.
whether it is viable. If you were to,
if I were to put it slightly integrate these two questions, the viability of coaching as a profession would decide how much time I can devote to it.
okay.
So that's
Right.
the link between these two.
Wonderful, wonderful. I also heard you, Ajit, saying that these questions should not remain as questions by the time
True.
we end. What would you like them to be if they're not remaining as questions?
Options.
Sorry?
They would generate options. Maybe
Options.
option one,
Okay.
option two.
Right.
Yeah.
And as you get those options, what will that give you, Ajit?
An impetus to act.
So, so what if you get an impetus to act? What will that mean to you?
Yeah, that would lead to clarity. The thing that I'm seeking on. I mean,
Okay.
at the outset, we said for it, right?
Yes. And I remember you mentioning that you don't know what you will get when you get that clarity, but you would like that clarity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I
And
said I don't know what I would like to have at the end, but I said I would like to have that clarity.
yes. And when you get that clarity, uh, which will give you the impetus to act, who will you become?
The person that I want to be.
And who is that?
There is Ajit plus something.
Wow. And for the first time, Ajit, I saw a smile on your face. What just happened to you, Ajit, when you said Ajit plus something?
Yeah, the something is that clarity.
Okay. And what are you probably becoming aware of right now?
I'm probably becoming more aware of the fact that my answers are for mine to seek.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's answers could be my answers, or everybody's answers could be different.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I need to work on my answers.
Mm-hmm.
I need to engage with my questions.
Okay. If I were to have your permission to ask you a question at this moment, as you said these I need tos, if you were to convert them into I choose to, what will that make a difference for you?
Ownership,
And
ownership and energy.
what is this energy?
That will help me to move on, drive ahead, take the next step. The
And what will
reaffirmation of my beliefs,
mm-hmm.
what I've been thinking
Okay.
so long.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. And if I were to ask you, what does this ownership mean to Ajit?
Can I hear the question again, please?
Ownership. What does ownership mean to Ajit?
Responsibility for action.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. If I were to just check with you, Ajit, as we are moving into this conversation from where we began towards the outcome that you wanted, how are we progressing so far?
If I were to look at a scale, be about 5 of 10.
And where were we when we started?
2 or 3.
Okay. And what, according to you, Ajit, will help us from here to get to a number which you want to get to from 5 on 10?
More time to think, generating options, workable options.
Can I make an observation at this point in time,
Sure.
Ajit? When we started,
Absolutely.
uh, uh, I noticed an Ajit which was uh, a lot of excitement and a lot of you know uh, movement and a lot of animation. And as we are moving towards this part of our conversation, I'm noticing Ajit to be a little more reflective and little more slow and deliberate. What might be happening to you, Ajit, right now?
It's almost like your questions were my questions to myself, and you helped me there.
Okay,
Rather talk to myself,
okay,
and probably this gave me an opportunity to reach out the recesses
okay,
to confirm, validate, which I have been holding, I've been thinking of.
okay.
Probably that was a validation that
All right, all
seems
right,
to be.
okay. Um, I'm noticing Rossella has come on the screen, so I
Yes.
Yeah.
think we've run out of time.
Hi,
Thank you
Ursula.
very much, Ajit. Thank you
Hi,
for this
Ursula. Hi.
conversation.
No.
Yeah.
Hi.
I
Thank you.
Thank you.
applaud.
Thank you.
Wow,
Thank you
it
so
was
much. Thank you, Johnny. Thanks so
Thank you,
much.
thank you, Ajit.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
it's
Thank you so
so
much, Johnny.
difficult to kind of butt in because it was going so well. Yeah, but we do have constraints of time.
I'm so sorry.
Excellent, excellent,
Yeah.
very well done.
Yeah. And I would like first, Ashit, as a client, what would you like to acknowledge to Johnny? Maybe thinking about the competency, which one he demonstrated towards yourself.
He gave me that opportunity to be silent.
Mm.
That was something that I noticed. And there was a lot of time when I was keeping quiet and he didn't butt in with a provoking, so to say, what we believe as coaches, a thought provoking question. He didn't try to provoke my thoughts, he just let me be. I think that was pretty impressive.
That was we could say, a moment when Johnny said, so he left space for you to think, reflect, and then nothing was coming. And then he asked. So he really
True.
gave you the space to do that.
Yes.
And here we could see also how Johnny was exactly creating that himself first. So then Ajit was feeling safe in doing that too. So giving himself space to think and reflect, because Johnny was giving himself space to think and reflect as a coach.
True.
And many times the client is modeling us. So by embodying that behavior that the client is looking for, we allow the client to do the same. And here was a nice matching, nice there. And Johnny, what would you like to acknowledge yourself as a coach?
I was, I was, uh, I was, uh, I raised my hand because of a conversation I had with my mentor last night. And she said, I want you to experience before you submit your PCC. You've finished your hours, you finished everything in the markers. Go through an experience of a dissatisfied client in your coaching conversation and reflect as to what it does to me before you even take that step of getting towards PCC. And I said, let me jump into this and see what it means to experience this with 100 people watching me.
And
How much
what
more
have you
vulnerable can
learned?
I get?
Yeah, what have you learned, Johnny?
I learned that uh, I still didn't achieve that goal of getting my client dissatisfied.
Okay.
I still have
So,
to do a lot more work to do.
well, definitely, we could see many competencies demonstrated. If you have to think one thing that you didn't dare to do, what
Sorry, can you repeat that again, Rosala?
one thing that you didn't dare to do, Johnny?
That I didn't dare to do is to perhaps challenge him earlier than. So the silence and the so was, in a sense, a challenge to Ajit, and I think he really worked with himself, and I could have dared to challenge him earlier and probably gotten to a 7 or 8 on his scale by the time we reached 5. I do not know. I'm just thinking aloud.
Okay, challenge him a little bit earlier as you did in the later part. And you change also your rhythm there yourself.
Yes.
And you dare to do it. Yeah.
Yes.
And I noticed definitely the in the last part, you dare to share more about what you were observing compared to the first part.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Yeah.
And something that Johnny did, if you have observed, is that at the beginning, the client came in focusing externally. He was outside the session. He was not even talking in I. And then Johnny, what he did, he really to bring in the attention of the client on himself, what it meant to him. And this is exactly what I was mentioning before, looking at the narrative and letting the client going from the story to focusing on himself and what was relevant to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so well done on doing that. Let me check. Who else has noticed? And who will have addressed, maybe that's the question. Which is the question that you're, after having listened to the client, you're still holding and you would like to, if you were the coach, to ask to Ajit. And let's go through all the questions here. So please write it there. And obviously each coach has his own style. So, we have an impact anyway on what happened to the session. That's why, same client, same topic, different coach, we get a different session.
Yeah.
So let's see. And in the meantime, while we wait for the people to write, I would like to ask the client, which is the question that you would have asked yourself if you were the coach? Ajit.
Do you want to be a coach?
If you were coaching, do you want to be the coach like that?
No.
Ooh.
Do you really want to be a coach? Not in this session, but when you're faced with a dilemma, or how much do you want to be a coach?
And what happens when you ask that question?
It reaches within the desire, it verifies probably the veracity or the intensity of the desire to be a coach. And if that is high, then it's only a question of how. And then let the client find out for himself.
So asking direct question around how you perceive yourself as a coach.
No, how much do you want to be a coach?
How much do you want to be the coach?
Yeah.
Okay. So we could say the motivation, Ajit, here.
Yeah. How much internal motivation does he have?
Okay.
Himself to be a coach? Because if I am high enough there, then the how is a matter of time. But if it is low, then the how is not going to come up.
Okay.
That's what I think at this moment.
Yeah. No, we could feel. And what is the emotion that you were feeling internally, when thinking about this dilemma, Ajit?
Okay, it started off with I'm okay to admit a bit of frustration, confusion, questioning myself, and so on.
Thank you. So here
Thank you.
again, these
Thank
are
you.
other questions that we can ask to the client in order to gather more information, not only about the thinking process, that one he was expresses, but also the emotions that he's feeling, why you think about that dilemma. And gathering more information on all levels. So here there are several questions you can bring with you as a client. Yeah. And what else we have seen here? Definitely the definition of the agreement. So Johnny explored the different areas of the agreement and was very, very mindful in building on what the client was bringing as new things in the session. It was very flexible. Maybe, yes, something that we'll look at, in flexibility also, not asking always the same type of questions. So maybe vary questions. This could be something that can help you address the different levels. Have I already asked something, how do you see yourself? I will ask something, how do you feel? And then change. What do you sense inside? In order to have diversify also the stimulus that I'm giving to my client. And what else is there? Let me check. So here there are there are questions about the internal barriers. Here is important. Something that Johnny did very well at the second part is to invite the client to choose on what to focus. So we have seen from the competencies, something to highlight is invite the client to focus. Every time there is an option, we ask them to choose, knowing that, well, we might be able to address them both, but we need to choose. So even at the beginning, when there were two things that he mentioned, he said, what will tell you that you got these two things? You might invite the client to choose one and then invite what to get. So this allows us to reinforce the focus of the client on one thing that is very manageable. And maybe never forget the fact that the client anyway was comparing to all the rest, of other coaches. And that's what could be the challenge, well, how he could see himself, different from the others, and challenge also his self-belief and identity as a coach and as a person. So great. So I leave you to Anu, and I thank you so much, Johnny. It was an amazing session, definitely at PCC level, so even more. And thank you for you, Ajit, as a client, for being so open. So Anu, I leave it to you to close. And thank you everybody for all these great questions.
I think there are amazing amount of questions for you, Rossella. So I wanted to ask you, we just have 5 minutes left. Can we contract for some extra time, or you have to run in the next 5 minutes? Do we have the opportunity to extend by 5 or 6 minutes or 10 minutes? Or
always. First of all, I'm Italian, so I always give extra time. That's my culture.
Everybody on the call are also okay to, because I've seen everybody so engrossed that nobody's even looking at the watch. And I have my co-host Tushima frantically messaging me that, we're up, when will we do Q&A? So if everybody is good and we could stay for an extra 10 minutes, and if Rossella is absolutely game for it, it would be a pity if we can't take those questions. And before we take those questions, I would request Nimish to actually run the final feedback poll, because that will be extremely critical for us to gather your inputs as to how you found the session and how we could take it forward. And then type in, and I think I will then hand it over to Tushima to navigate through the barrage of questions that we've had. So as Tushima is collating the questions, if Nimish, you could run the final feedback poll,
Right.
and we get
Here
down
goes the
to these
poll.
extra 10 minutes.
Here goes the poll, and the
Thank you
question
so much
comes.
for that, Rosella.
You're welcome. And then those who needs to leave, they can look at the recording, watch the recording, the last part of the
Yeah, but it's
recording.
no fun watching recording when you have you in front of us. So
Okay.
All right, here comes the poll.
Mhm.
On your screens, kindly start voting.
yes, it will not take you more than 2 minutes to complete the poll. Please scroll down for the questions which follow. I think they're just 5 questions and they're all multiple choice or single choice. So please do that as I hand it over to Tashima to curate those questions, and Rosella would help us answer them.
Thank you, Anu. Okay, folks, as you are answering the questions which are there in the poll, let me start posing the questions to Rosella.
Yes.
So, Rosella, first off, we have a few questions around, the first competency, which is to do with ethics and laws and so on. And the first question is, when it comes to maintaining confidentiality, which pertinent law will prevail in case there's any kind of an issue, especially if the coach and client come from different countries?
Mhm. Well, again, as a reference, because I noticed that there was another question about who can tell me what is the best practice.
Yeah.
Definitely, the ICF normally chapter can of the country, not only of your country but also of the country of the client. They have a sort of set of rules already. Ask for legal advice on that rule. I know with companies, we might most of the time align with what the law of the client. So because we could say the relation is not so equal, so that can be the law of the client. In most of the other cases, we can say is the law of the coach. But what is more important is that if you want to feel the client safe, you can simply, well, you need to have an insurance, definitely a liability insurance, but then accept that will be the law of the client. And this normally let the client feel safe. And we know it's rare. They're really rare. There are legal issues, especially if you have a written contract and you agree that if the client wants to stop the relationship, they can at any time. Most of the complaints that come to the ethical committee and then generates legal issues is because the coach is not ready to close the relationship on client's request, and give the money back that they have received for non-used sessions. So this is something to take in mind and consider, to include in your contract, and also be ready to accept that the client can end the relation at any time, not even needing to provide the reasons for ending. This is another thing that generate complaints. The coach asked me why I were ending, and I felt really, I felt really not, that my confidentiality was broken. So definitely, these are few rules that can prevent you from having legal issues. Then you might agree with the client, as it is a contract, which law will regulate, can be yours or the one of the client, depending on the situation. Yeah.
Great, thanks for that. And as a follow-on from that, if we have to customize our agreements accordingly, is there any kind of an updated mandate for a written coaching agreement? Is it
Yeah.
compulsory to have a written coaching agreement?
Well, I would recommend even for pro bono, because having an agreement can demonstrate clearly that you, first of all, that is an established relationship. And so having an agreement, even for pro bono, also that includes competencies, code of ethics. When the client reads all the duties they have also as a client, they're much more aware what is expected from them. And when they read a code of ethics, they know what to expect and what to not expect from the coach. So I see normally the level of awareness raising in clients when they read the agreement. And even if you work with companies, it is good to have that commercial agreement with a company, but then have an agreement, a coaching agreement with your clients. So they know exactly what are the rule of the games for this relationship. And the more you write, I always say, the better it is. So don't dare to share whatever, even preventing the worst scenarios. And rarely those happens, but if you have created awareness and also educated your client on what coaching is. Regarding the topic, if I may, that has emerged during this session, this is one of the typical topics that emerged is, and ICF has clearly stated in the course of Code of Ethics that you can find in the ICF website, that we might have different other competencies. And what happened is that it is important that we don't create confusion. So in the package that we create for the client, we might include mentoring, we might include training, we might include coaching. The important thing is that these are splitted. The worst things that happens is that when the client is not understanding what you are providing to them, these are the cases where complaints and legal issues arise. So keep these distinct sessions. And I always give that example. I coach new leaders. And, when I do the first discovery interview with them, I discovered that they know nothing about leadership, no education on it. So, well, definitely I start, first of all, I will provide some training sessions and materials on leadership styles and methods. Then there will be sessions of coaching, pure coaching, where I will support you and partner you to discover who you want to be as a leader. Then after you have done that, you are in your new role, you might need mentoring for a longer period to be in that role. So these are 3 different type of services I provide, but they're not mixed up. They're clearly splitted in different periods, in different sessions. So the client knows what to ask for and what to expect from me when I'm a trainer, when I'm a coach, when I'm a mentor.
Great, excellent. And if I engage a coach for supervision, so that's the next question, then is there any regulation there that I need to follow?
Yeah, well, ICF clearly invite coaches to look for supervisor who have been trained specifically on supervision. So this is obviously an indication and a suggestion. Supervision for the moment is considered as a support for coaches. It's not still mandatory for coaches for ICF. It is for other bodies like the European Mentoring Coaching Council, where you must have a supervision session every quarter. But for ICF, it's not mandatory. But obviously, as we mentor coaches and as with supervisor, you need to look for a specific training they have gone through and certification. Yeah.
Okay. Moving on, in terms of pre and post session preparation and reflection. So there are a couple of questions that are around that. So how do you prepare the client? Earlier you talked about there could be a demand for shorter and shorter sessions, 30 minutes, 20 minutes, and so on. And some kind of preparation might become important. So whether the session is short or long, how would you prepare the client?
Yeah. Well, again, you might look at, first of all, as again, being flexible, adapt to the client's need. There are clients that need more reflection to prepare. And, all those clients also that talk a lot. Some clients need a little bit more time to prepare and more questions. So you might adapt the pre-session questionnaire to what you are discovering about the client in the discovery session, the initial sessions, and you might add some things. For example, it might be difficult for them to pick up one thing to focus on. So you might ask the same question you ask in establishing the agreement that Johnny did so well. What would you have to focus? How would you know that you have that you are looking for? You can ask all those questions also in the pre-session questionnaire. So the client does the job before, and when they come in, at least they have already worked on it and give you the answer. So the agreement, it's shorter. It takes less because they have already done them brainstorm and work on themselves before the session. And it also gives them the time to reflect also on their emotional state. So you might ask questions like, how is your energy level today? What do you need to get ready for the session? And is there anything, that is getting in the way for you to be present? And just simply writing it down or thinking through allow the client to leave it aside and enter being present. So the agreement definitely can be done a little bit before the session, double check on the presence and the emotional state, and then asking for expectations. What do you expect from me as a coach? And this guides you through if the client needs more support in the session, will be challenged. So some clients clearly state me, I want you to challenge me. So when we start the session, I say, you wrote that, I'm going to challenge you here. So the agreement is done also on that.
Okay. And Rossella, is there a method that you can share or suggest for coaches to do reflective practice after every coaching session?
Oh. Yeah, well, I use some of the questions, but definitely the question I could say that I use most frequently is what is the question that I didn't dare to ask? What am I still holding, carrying with me from the session? How am I feeling? So sometimes after some session, you feel your energy low. And so I question that. What happens here? That my energy is so low now compared to when I started. And then another question that I normally ask is, well, what is the mistake that I did? I look at that, what is the worst mistake that I did? So I look a little fun on myself, but definitely there are mistakes that they, and I normally sense it here when I do it, when I know that I'm doing something that I should have been doing. So, if I have that feeling, normally there is something that I could have done differently. And so I make peace with myself simply by acknowledging that. And the last thing is the triggers, because definitely there are so many triggers during a session. So I look for triggers that I put aside when I was during the session, but I need to deal with them and decide with who I need to deal with them. Maybe my mentor, maybe my supervisor or my coach.
Thank you so much, Rossella. I'm going to step in here. I think the questions can continue, and we don't want to kind of take so much of your time. And I'm sure Tushima still has a long list of questions left. So I promise that we will not let you go. I will post the questions to you, and maybe you could answer them in the interim, or maybe we could take up some of those questions in the next session.
Absolutely, I will start.
So,
Yeah,
I have a
star.
request. I would want everybody to come back on camera so that we can click a nice picture. And then I have another very small activity for everybody to do before they leave. So can everybody please come on camera so that I can take a snapshot of everyone here. We have majority of people who've already left, but I would still want to make this happen for us. So yes, quickly, everybody come on camera. Let's hear all your smiles and your pretty faces. All right, so I have two screens to take, so you could continue with your smiles or whatever else that you want to show. So I'm going to take the first First screen.
Yeah, like Johnny. Yeah. Love that.
So first screen is happening.
Oh.
Hold on, don't go because the screens keep shifting. So patience here, my dears. At times you get technologically challenged. So, okay, now I am moving to the second screen. So hold your smiles and hold your pretty faces. All right. All right, I am done. And what I really want you to do now, so write any one thing, and hold on, let me complete before so write any one thing which has been your takeaway from today's session. Don't write it yet. Write it on the chat box. And when I say go, then everybody press enter. So please write what has been your biggest takeaway from this session today. Write it down. I will give you about 30 seconds to do so. And when I say go, only then press the enter button. I heard this recently. They call it the word storm or the comment storm. So I thought, let me try it out. Right. So everybody done?
Yes.
I'll count down. So 3, 2, 1, go.
You know, there is a tsunami. I know
Love
there is
it.
a tsunami of
What happened? What happened?
Right. So
there is a
yeah.
tsunami of takeaways.
Yeah. So I can't thank you enough, Rossella. I think we've had
Thank you.
absolutely amazing session. I think you were awesome. People just lost track of time. We were thinking 2 hours is going to be too much. Do we build in a bio break, or do we build in something, because people will be sitting on their chairs, but I don't think anybody moved, and I think that says for itself. Thank you so much for my volunteers, Johnny and
Thank you.
Ajit, for coming in front of 100 people. It's not an easy task at all. And thank you for my team, my backbone, Nimish, Poonam, who's been in the background. We have Toshima. Excellent work by all of us, and all of you. So, and awesome coaches. So I guess we can't wait to present the next offering to you. So please stay engaged, stay in touch, keep letting us know what you want, and we will be very happy to work as hard as we can to try and bring you out content which should be of value to you. So with that, thank you so much, Rossella. Can't wait
Thank
to
you.
meet you again on the 16th. That's the next session. So if you all have not registered, please do that. 16th December, we are back with Rossella, same time, 6:30, and we'll love to hear from you. So